Hi and good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this seminar today. My name is Caroline Newbury and I work at Penguin Random House in the UK with a special responsibility for our education lists and our Ladybird Readers series. And it is my job to make sure that our books and our products are as suitable as they possibly can be for you who are teaching and using them. So it's a real privilege to be able to do seminars like this for you to explain a little bit about our books, but most importantly, how you might be able to practically use them within your classrooms, and for you to also ask plenty of questions of me and to give us feedback so that we can understand exactly what it is that you need from our readers. So today I am going to do a brief presentation, probably taking about 40 minutes or so, to talk through a little bit about how you can use readers in your classroom to teach English. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions as you have them. If you type them into the chat box, if I see them as I'm going along, I will try and answer as I present. Otherwise, we will have about 15-20 minutes at the end of the presentation for me to go through and try and answer everything that you need to know. But if there is anything outstanding after this, or you need further information, etc., obviously the team at SBS will be more than happy to either help or to pass queries on to me. So what I'm going to do is start a little bit talking about how to choose to use readers in the classroom, and then try to give some practical examples of how to use them. I am going to turn my camera off just because I need to be able to see the slides on my own screen to present, but do let me know as well if anyone has any problems hearing or understanding me. So let me know. Thank you very much. So in terms of thinking about using readers in the classroom, I think one of the things to start out with is to talk about how they actually might be able to help you teach. I completely understand that you are all hugely busy, probably have very few hours in your day or week in order to be able to teach English to your students, and that you also all have a syllabus that you need to teach, and plenty of things that your head of department or head of the school is telling you that you need to teach with your teachers. So sometimes readers can often seem like a supplement or an unnecessary addition, something that is very fun and enjoyable, but maybe doesn't help you with your teaching. So what I wanted to spend the first part of this presentation doing is to just really explain to you how readers can actually be beneficial in a huge number of ways within the classroom. So one of the questions really is how to use readers and in the classroom. So why would you want to use stories? I think one of the things to emphasize is that stories can really help a number of different learning aims and literacies. So whether that is actually developing literacy skills themselves in terms of simply reading and writing, it can also help in terms of developing comprehension, introducing vocabulary. Often students don't really understand what a word is or means until they actually see it in the context of the story. But alongside that, using readers can improve listening skills. So whether that is for when a child is listening to you or to others in the class reading the story, or possibly hearing the audio or answering questions. They also can really help with encouraging imagination and creativity. It's so important that alongside the story, it's not just reading the book, but actually asking children questions about it, asking them to think about what they might do if they were in the same situation as somebody in the story, or how they think characters feel or what they might do. Similarly, this can also then help children develop empathy or awareness of others by putting themselves in the same positions as many of the people in the story. They can really help develop these skills. And at the end of the day, readers can always be used to actually help you teach your syllabus. If you have got specific topic areas that need covering, particular grammar structures, vocabulary aims, etc., all readers can help you to do this. Which brings us then to the question of how you actually choose the stories that you might want to use within the class. And really, one of the things to start with, and that is great about using stories, is that they are fun and enjoyable. So think about the stories that your children will like. What are their interests? What are their passions? Are they people who like animals? Do they like cars? Is it pirates? Do they like princesses? So that there should be something in a range of readers that enables you to spark the imagination of any child. And then once you have chosen this topic, the other thing that you obviously have to do is make sure you're using a story that matches their age and also their language level. So as you all know, if the book is too hard, children will give up. If it's too easy, they'll actually probably get bored. And similarly, maybe their language level isn't very high, but they could be slightly older students. So maybe choose books with topics they'll really like. For this, non-fiction readers are often really good. They balance that idea of having a high interest level, but lower language levels. And just as you have to make sure that you get this leveling right, one of the other things is to choose the right length. As you all know, if you've got very beginner readers, if the story is too long or takes the book too much time to get through, children often use or lose English. Again, as we've discussed, you can use readers to teach or maybe even supplement your syllabus. So you can choose ones with similar themes. What I'm talking about today and the practical tips I will give could be used for any range of readers, but as I do work for Ladybird, one of the things that we can help with in this is that our Ladybird readers are already mapped to CEFR, but we also have, as I'll show in a minute, a breakdown of exactly the contents in each book. So again, if you're looking for something that really maps to your curriculum, we can help with that. And then also think about things where you can have plenty of additional materials or activities around the book. So often reading the story isn't enough. And as you will all know, we need to be able to extend reading with variety of activities, either before you're starting to read the book, during it, or after as well. So one of the things that is great is to look for stories or a range of books that will actually allow you to do this. And so obviously, as I say, I work for Ladybird. I'll just show you how some of this can fit in, but I will do this very, very quickly and then move on to some practical things. If you think about stories that children will like and interests and passions, it's a good idea to find a series that has a blend of titles. So anything that includes both original stories, possibly fairy tales that children might be familiar with, classic stories, and non-fiction. But then also what we have in Ladybird Readers and also other ranges do are all of the incredible brands. So things that children will really love and they would like to learn to read with. As we said, one of the things you also need to think about is matching their age and language level. Therefore, it's a good idea if you're looking for a series of, or if you're looking for readers in the classroom, to really take and make sure you go for thoroughly graded readers. So that you have them across a range of levels. This not only helps to make sure that your children are reading at the right level, but also gives them a really good sense of being able to accomplish things as they move up across levels. Similarly, thinking around the right length, all of our books are have got a handy guide on them, so you can see the number of words and see the level. And also, as I said, one of the things we have, and this is just a snapshot for one series, is mapping of exactly what the curriculum is covered in each of those stories, so you can look how to use it. And as we said, one of the other things to look for is for something that has got plenty of options for activities around the book, and there are plenty of reading schemes and stories that help provide those areas. So if from all of that you have then chosen the stories that you think your children would like to learn with and have found the right reader, the next thing is how exactly you put this into practice and how you teach with readers in the classroom. One of the things that we have at Ladybird is a website with plenty of additional teaching resources on, and within that there are lesson plans, and these are broken down into a familiar structure of before, during and after reading activities. And so in terms of this seminar, I will take you through things in the same order. So things that you can do before you've even started reading the books with children, what you can do during it, and then things that you can hopefully do afterwards to help enhance the understanding of your children. So before you even start reading the book, there are a couple of areas that are really helpful and good to start to spark children's interest in the stories, but also give you a chance to introduce some of the vocabulary and themes that might come up in a story to really help potentially encourage children, make them feel like they will have a sense of understanding of the story before they begin, so that if they find the language possibly tricky, they've already got a good context for the story. So one of the first things that you can look at before you even open the book is its title. So obviously the title of a book is incredibly important. It can give us a lot of information about the book, or even kind of clues about the content of the story. And so this, as I say, is a really good way for you to be able to focus on the story, put across key language before the reading process even begins, and really help get the children in the right mindset for the story. So you can focus attention to the language on the front cover and be able to come up with activities around this. Some of it might not necessarily be immediately understandable to children, possibly, say, in the case of this book, The Enormous Turnip, maybe children might not know what the word enormous means, or they may not even know what a turnip is. So you can use that to begin to explain the book. First of all, you should try to use the title to elicit from your learners or readers as much as possible. See what they understand themselves from that part of the title. So possibly literally asking them, do they know what a turnip is? And asking them to think about that. Or if they are looking at the words enormous, see if they can come up with different words for enormous. So you could then elicit the answers of huge or large or big, and look at that. If they don't know what a turnip is, if they haven't seen the picture on the front of the book, you could ask them to imagine it. What do they think what it might look like? What colours is it? How where does it grow? What is it? And then try to get as much information from them. What you can then do is do a small game with them to ask them to think about the title, and then get 6 keywords that they think go with a title. So it could be that if we were looking at The Enormous Turnip, our 6 keywords could be, say, large, big, huge. It could then be something like vegetable, round, healthy. And then from these, you can get the children to potentially come up with suitable sentences, including these words. If the children really don't know what a turnip is, the use of realia is really helpful in this situation. Can you bring a turnip to the class for them to be able to see? Or maybe even bring in other vegetables that they would be able to compare it with. What's the difference between a turnip and a carrot? And this is really, really helpful for if you're using realia in this way, to add a kind of an extra dimension to your class. And it's also really helpful for anyone who is more of a tactile learner, or needs to have something visual for them to learn from. So as you can see, before you even open the book, there's also the potential to teach an awful lot of related topics. So again, it potentially could fit with your syllabus if you are looking to teach a class about food things or eating. This might be a story that fitted in very well, and you could use the title, and also in a minute as we'll come on to the cover, to talk about different types of vegetables, even when people think they might eat a turnip. Do they eat it? Is it sweet? Is it savoury, etc.? So you could use it to kind of get more additions. Similarly, if your aim of your class is to teach adjectives or things about size, you can use something like this to talk about what an enormous turnip is, but what a tiny turnip might be. So again, being able to give the children a much broader vocabulary within that. And then one of the other things that you can use before you even open the book is not just the title itself, but actually also the front covers themselves. Obviously, again, these are really good for visual learners. You will often have very bright and vivid pictures on them. So it's good for you to be able to run through the elements of that thing. So again, you know, what can you see? Who are they? How many things can you count? You can use them again to teach a whole range of vocabulary. So whether you're wanting to teach things like colours, you can use the cover to say, if you were looking at Little Red Riding Hood, you can run through, you know, what colour is her dress, what colour is the wolf, what colour is the tree, or you can use them for simple counting exercises. So in the same case, how many trees can you see in the background? How many eyes does Little Red Riding Hood have? So you can use those to elicit other ideas. It also helps when you have got the cover and some of the illustrations to really give children an idea of potentially what the book might be about, understand kind of the topic, which really creates a kind of quite nice, safe learning environment for them and takes really some of the fear factor potentially out of reading them. What you can also do is use the cover for them to start to predict what might happen in the story. Can they guess, if you were looking at the magic porridge pot, who the characters are and what might happen? It's brilliant for them to be able to start to think about that creatively, but also as well, it's a great checkpoint as you start to read the story to see who got it right, whether they really had the same thoughts about the series. And that's talking about what you can find on the front of the book. But actually, again, even before you get into the story, one of the things you can do is also use the back of the book. So on the back of our Ladybird Readers, we have a very short blurb about the book. So this is just a small summary of the story to try and give a kind of an indication of what might happen. So you can do all sorts of things with this for your students. You can potentially just give them this blurb and ask them to highlight within it any of the words that maybe they don't know or don't understand. You know, potentially if we looked at the one at the top left, maybe they wouldn't know the word porridge, and this would give you a chance to explain that before starting the story. Or you could ask them to read the back of the book and pick out who they think are going to be the main characters in the story. So if you look at the one on the bottom left, the little red hen, they would probably pick up red hen and sly fox. And then you could also ask them to think about those characters, what they might look like, if you can guess what sort of person or what sort of character they might be before they start the story. So for instance, if you were asking them about Sly Fox, you could sort of find out whether you think or they think he is going to be a good or a bad character, what sort of things he might do. You could also, if you wanted to do something more practical and interactive, you could give the children the blurbs from the stories, maybe divide them into groups and ask them to create a poster or a drawing about it just from looking at the blurb, seeing what they think they can understand about the story and who would be there. Or you could simply, before you've shown them the blurb, you could actually go back and give the children the front cover, and simply ask them from that to write their own blurb about the book, and then compare it to the one that's on the book. Did they think the same things were going to happen? Do they know what it is? But again, it's a really good opportunity by using this to understand potentially what your students may already understand about the story, any vocabulary that they don't know, and to also set some more context before you read the book, so that you can help them learn. It's also something that you might want to come back to after you have actually read the story, to see whether they think that the blurb is correct, whether they might rewrite the blurb after they have read the story, so to keep them engaged from both the beginning to the end of the lesson. And then the next thing that you can do with your children is to start to introduce the vocabulary that is in the stories. So within the Ladybird Readers series, what we have is on every book we have a double page spread of picture words that are included within the stories. It's really, really helpful for you to introduce potential kind of vocabulary, but also all of the kind of the key characters. You can keep coming back to this all the time during the story, to really help kind of reinforce all of these people. So one of the things that you can do is use the book to, or use these vocabulary words to help describe whatever the word is in question. You can get them to help with kind of writing tasks. You can even get them to help describe and explain these characters. You can use it to introduce sort of basic connectors, or help them to do kind of critical thinking. So you could potentially ask them to look at the picture of an old woman and ask them why we know this woman is old. You know, potentially they could come back saying, well, she is walking with a walking stick, she has grey hair, etc. But use it as a way, again, of getting them to think a little bit more kind of around the story. What we also have within Ladybird Readers is that all of these picture words are also available as flashcards, which you can download from our website. So again, you can keep using those and keep coming back to them within the story. One of the things that you can do is introduce those into kind of games as you are reading along, again, to ensure that the children have understood vocabulary and understand what those mean. It could be that you give a set of all of the picture words to children, and if you are reading the story out as you go along, what you can do is get them to hold those flashcards up. So if you've got flashcards for old woman, etc., whenever that word is used in the class, you can get them to hold it up to understand that they really know what that word means. And so in some of our older books, the picture words look a little older and have more smaller illustrations. So what you can do is get them to really kind of work through all of these characters and understand what there is within it. So as I say, there's plenty of things that you can do before you even start reading the book. It can be that when you've done this much with children, you can get them to, now that they know some of the key vocabulary and key content from the blurb, you can maybe get them to pick up the write their own title for the book. Is it something where they could predict words that they think might appear in the book? They could all just write down potentially 5 words or maybe even 10 that they think might come up within this story, and then you could almost play a kind of a word bingo, that as you read it out, they could tick off words from their list that they thought they were going to be in the story, and the first person to get all of their 5 or 10 words in the story is the winner of that little competition. So it's just ways in which you can help bring some of the pre-reading work into when you are doing the actual reading. As I say, whilst you are reading, one of the great things about Ladybird Readers is that all of the books are very heavily illustrated, as well as having the text on the pages. So again, as you are reading the story, and this can be done in a variety of ways, and I think one of the things is that when you're looking for readers in a classroom, they should be very flexible. So if it is something that you would want it to be able to work for, whether you are reading it out to the children, potentially in the first instance, whether it's happening in kind of circle time, whether they are doing shared reading, or potentially whether they're doing individual reading, you want to be able to have kind of elements from the book that work for that. And during reading, again, some of the things that you can do are take some of those pre-reading activities and to see how they work within the book, as I say, to check whether the children had their inferences about the characters right, and how it works. And on every page, you can use the same sort of tactics as you did with the cover and the blurb in order to teach reading. So, for example, if you're on this page, again, you can talk about the colours that are within the spread, looking at, say, what colour are the roofs of the houses, what colour are the clothes that the people are wearing. Again, there are things like numbers that you can use, how many people are dancing, how many children are there in the picture. But also then you can start to ask children questions, as we said, to build potential kind of empathy within it. So if you look at the picture, do you think that people are happy or sad? Why is that? And ask them for some more context within the story itself. What you can also do whilst reading is you can then split the book down into smaller sections and get the children to potentially act out certain scenes from the book. We also have on our Ladybird Readers website, we have a number of role plays so that the children can then also act out, and it helps them really understand the vocabulary that is included within this series as well. And then one of the things that you can do after reading, our books themselves contain a whole variety of exercises, and these can cater for different skill sets and also for learning styles. So within the book itself, we have plenty of activities that practice speaking, writing, listening. They provide exam practice if children are taking Cambridge Young Learners exams, and also help with critical thinking. And as I said, one of the things we also have are plenty of lesson plans which are available. All of them are broken down into before, during and after reading to really help support those children. And then also what we have is some differentiation activities at the end. So if you have got children who require some extra support, we can certainly give ideas on how you might do that. But also, again, if you have got children who want to, who need extension activities, then we can help provide activities for those as well. And then what we also have within the book is, or on our website, is also audio in both British and American English. And I think when you're using readers, one of the things you can also do is, in order to help children's listening skills, is to play that audio. So it isn't just that they hear you or their friends reading out the book, but that they are able to hear different voices and different accents reading it, in order to really get a good sense of listening activities as well. And then in terms of potentially other things that you could do that are related to the book, and again, one of the things that you can use readers for is that they are not just for students who learn through actually kind of reading. You can make them completely relevant for students who learn much better through both tactile learning, through auditory learning. They can be used with a variety of different methods. So one of the things we mentioned at the beginning about bringing in realia to explain what certain elements in the story might be, you could create in your classroom a book table and have your students bring in things that are related to the book so that you could discuss them. So again, as we said, if it was the enormous turnip, they could bring in other kinds of foods or vegetables. So in order to help really kind of bring it alive and make it feel very kind of different for them. As we said, the books all come with flashcards, but one of the things that you could do in order to make the lesson kind of more mobile, if you have got space in your classroom, and to help get your children up and learning, is potentially put large flashcards of the characters around the classroom, and as you are reading the story, or as they're walking around the classroom, all of the children have to go to the character in question, and then they have to describe that character with one other word. So, for instance, if it was Little Red Riding Hood, they might walk over to Little Red Riding Hood and say anything from a young girl through to she's wearing a red hood. But again, that just helps ensuring that potentially reading time isn't just necessarily passive and sitting there for your students, but is really helping get them up and moving and really engaged within the book. One of the other things that you can do is create a washing line, or use a kind of piece of string that is hanging in the classroom. And again, you can either potentially use the flashcards or pictures of kind of keywords, and get the children to, or even get, if the children have within an exercise maybe drawn pictures of the scenes that have been described in the book, you could then get them to arrange those cards in order of how it all appears in the book, or the order in which characters appear, just again to get them to consolidate and really understand the story. As I say, you can also get the children to role play, whether that is within acting out the story of the book itself through the role plays that we have on the website, or even getting the children to put themselves in the place of one of the characters and describe to a friend how they are feeling or what they are doing. So again, if it was Little Red Riding Hood and they've just got to the bit where Red Riding Hood is at her grandma's house, but it's the wolf that's in the bed and not grandma, the child could then have be able to explain maybe how scared they are, or maybe how brave they feel at taking on the wolf, but get them to also then really work on those skills of empathy through the reader, as we said, and think about putting themselves into the place of the character. Again, it could be something that you get the children to do shared reading activities with, put them into groups or into partners, and get each to read a line or read within a story. As we said, picture bingo, you can use keywords and characters from the book as you're going along, getting the children to cross them off as they hear them in the story, and whoever gets all of their ideas first really can kind of win that game. So there are potentially lots and lots of different ideas in order to hopefully show how you can use readers in a very different way within your classroom. So one of the things I wanted to quickly do before we finish is to give a quick example of everything that I've been talking about and the kind of the theory of it with one of our books. This will be very simple, but just gives an idea of potentially how you might take one of the titles and use it within your classroom. So one of our books is Nancy Helps a Friend. This is a level 1 book, so it's quite basic, and really is for kind of grade 1 young learners, but just to show how you might be able to use this. So the book is Nancy Helps a Friend. So as we've discussed, one of the things before we even start reading is potentially to think about the title and the cover. So one of the things might be to ask the children who they think Anansi is. They might then pick out that he is the spider on the front of the cover. So maybe you then ask some questions about the spider, whether you wanted to teach colours. So it might be, what colour is he? He's obviously got red stripes and a black body. It might be anything from how many legs does he have? So you can use it to teach numbers. How many legs does he have? How many eyes? How many mouths does he have? You could then also ask the children what he's sitting on, and then use that to explain exactly what a web is and what a spider is. And then also ask them some questions to think a little bit more about their critical thinking. So maybe even putting themselves into the place of, actually, do you like spiders? Are you scared of spiders? But then think about who Nancy is, maybe who his friend is, what they think might happen in the story. And as you go along, one of the things you can use is a framework that's on the right hand side of sort of saying, well, how do you know that? Why do you say that? Can you explain? So getting the children all the time, not just to simply give you an answer, but to explain their thinking. So when you're asking who his friend is, you sort of say, well, you know, why do you think that? Can you explain what it is? And so by doing this, as we say already, the character, the main character in the story is already familiar to the children. They know it's going to be a story about a spider. They can start to think a little bit critically about who this is and why they are there. So again, as I say, the beginning of each reader has got picture words to introduce the kind of vocabulary. If you happen to be using a screen in your classroom, you can ask the children what animals they can see, and you can potentially either get them to come up and point each one out, so walk up again to get some movement into the class, or you can point out at the images. Alongside that, you can also obviously get them to practice additional vocabulary. So again, how many spiders can you see? What colour are they? Where is the snake sitting? And you can do that. One of the things that we have within our audio is the picture words themselves have separate audio. So you can literally simply play the words monkey over and over again to reinforce to the children. One of the things that you can then do is take the children through the story. As this is a very young reader, it's most likely that probably you would be reading out to the children and then getting them to answer questions. So as you tell the story, one of the things you can do is either for the first time potentially tell the story the whole way through without any additional activities or things, just so that the children get a sense for how the story runs and potentially what is going to happen. And then you could use a second telling to ask more questions. So again, you can do practical questions like actually how many children Nancy has got, or ask them things with more reasoning, or again to think more deeply. So do you like playing games? What sorts of games? What sorts of games are the children playing within this spread? Again, similarly, you can do similar sorts of activities with this. The other thing that you can do is also, if you would like to add any sort of verbal interaction with the children in the book, you can get them to, because this is animals, you can potentially get them to make animal noises. You can ask them what sorts of noises monkeys make, and if it's appropriate, not going to cause too much noise for every other person, is to get them to pretend that they are monkeys as well, just again to really bring the story alive and give them another focus. One of the things that you can also do in our very basic stories is that often the lines are quite repetitive. You'll see as we go through the spreads here that one of the things that is often the request when the spiders ask if they can play is that, no, we don't like your father's games. So one of the things in order to reinforce that and make it more entertaining for the children is to introduce the idea of turning it into a plan. So you could do something that literally went along the lines of, no, oh no, we don't like your father's games. And you can keep saying that every time it comes up within the book, and getting the children to join in as well. Again, if they're doing it en masse, none of them feel left out if they're slower to pick it up. And it again makes it more entertaining for them again. As you go through the story, one of the things you can also do is go back to ask questions about things that have already happened. So for example, on this spread, you can ask the children where Rat is living, but then go back and say, can you remember where the spiders were living? Where were the monkeys living? So that you can get them to recall elements of the story, to think about kind of wider vocabulary. And again, one of the things that you can use readers for, as we said, is in terms of kind of empathy. So on a spread like this, where again the children have been told that the little spiders have been told that they can't play with the other children, is to think about, how do you think the children feel about this? Are they happy or are they sad? And also, how do you think and Nancy feels? So again, getting them to really put themselves in the place of some of the characters in the story. As we also said, you can use the stories to help the children start to predict what they think is going to happen. So within the story, you can always ask them what they think some of the characters are going to do. Why do they say that? Again, get them to explain, and also continue to get them to understand what other characters in the story are feeling. You can also again add more of a movement element to it whenever you see any kind of sort of actions that might be possible to recreate in the story. So potentially for on this spread, the children are going to try and pull on a rope in order to get the arrow out of the snake. So one of the things you can get the children to do within the classroom is mime actually pulling a rope. And one of the things that also is really helpful is to get them to do it at different speeds. So they could pull the rope very, very slowly. They could pull it really, really fast. They could pull something, how they might pull it if something is really heavy on the end of the rope, to how it's really light. So again, to get them to add those elements to the story. And then as you reach near the end of the book, one of the things is to get the children to guess how they think the story ends, what they think is going to happen next. Will it be a happy ending? You know, and get them to again kind of infer what happened, and see where it is, ask some questions around the story. One of the other things that we have within our Ladybird Readers activity books is a song or a chant that goes at the end of the book. As I said earlier, if there are phrases in the book that continually get repeated, turning them into a chant is a really good idea for repeating that vocabulary and remembering it. So you can also use these. They have audio on our website as well. And then when you've done this, you can also go back in your story to try and get the children to remember or retell the story themselves, get them to recall as many details as they can remember. Split them into potential kind of groups in this story. So we've got obviously groups of children. There could be Nancy's children, Rat's children, and Monkey's children. Ask them to remember what happened to each of them in the story, how the story went, get them to replay the story. You can also, if you have been doing chants or actions, you can get them to redo those to consolidate the learning within the story. And then again, at the end of all of our books, we have got plenty of activities and things that are within it. So I think one of the things to say is that readers really can be used whatever you are trying to teach within the classroom, and that is not just reading literacy. They can be used for all elements of your syllabus and curriculum, and they can be used kind of as little or as much as you like. And there is plenty within them that can be built around the book itself before you have even begun reading. But I think one of the great things about using any readers or stories in the class is that they are usually incredible fun. Children can really identify with them, and you can use it to teach grammar or vocabulary that may be quite dry if taught on their own, but can really come into its own within it. So yeah, so that really is the end of our kind of seminar, just to give a few ideas. I will turn the video on. Yeah, just a few ideas of potentially how you might be able to use readers in your classrooms. I obviously have used this using examples from our Ladybird Readers series, but to be honest, you can use it using any books or graded reading series. These are only a small amount of examples. Again, the age of children that you are talking about may require slightly different sorts of activities, but the principles would be the same if you're teaching both fiction and non-fiction. Yeah, that is really everything. If you have got questions, let me oh gosh, there's lots of questions which I obviously haven't managed to see in the thing, so I'm now trying to work out how to extend the box so I can read everything. Let me have a look and see, but otherwise, if you have any more questions, please do ask and I will try and answer. So one of the questions is, do we use stories in audio? So yeah, as I say, one of the things we have on our website, which I haven't given the address for, but is www.ladybirdeducation.co.uk. We have downloadable audio for all of the stories. And you will be able to access those for free. All you need to do when you go onto the website is you have to register for an account, which means you have to give us your email address and your name, and then you get to access all of the teacher resources for free. We do also have downloadable digital versions of the books, but what you have to do is to actually buy the physical book in order to access the digital one. So as I say, all of those resources are absolutely free for you. So for someone who's asked if you have got a school which doesn't have an awful lot of budget or examples, as I say, all of those additional resources are there free for you. If you need printed copies, as in you're not able to access them on the website, you can also just let us know, and we will be able to provide printed options for you. But also the website is constantly updated. We have a newsletter as well, which goes out every month and provides some examples and suggestions for teaching, and we'll also have a blog which we will get quite a lot of our teacher trainers and editors and experts to write on to give some ideas for ideas to help you teach. So if there are particular topics that you would like to know more about or areas, then we can certainly do that. You can literally just drop us an email from the email address that is on the website, and we would be happy to do that. One of the things as well, and what I do, is look at making sure that we produce resources that are really helpful for teachers. So I'm always interested to hear things that might work for you. Quite a lot of the materials that we already have on the website came because teachers asked us for them. So again, please email us from the website, and you will be able to, we'll hopefully be able to produce something that would be useful for you as well. Someone is also asking whether they can have the slides. I can certainly share them with SBS, and they can pass on as necessary as well. So that's not a problem. We can do that. So yes, unless anyone has any other questions, that might be all of my presentation. Just have a look. So yes, so people are asking about the leveling. So yes, they're all CEFR leveled. As I say, they provide practice for anyone who is doing Cambridge Young Learner exams. But then one of the things that we can also do is map books to any syllabus that you are using. So we have got them mapped to different syllabuses, whether that is if people are doing IB or PYP, or even if people want to do need it mapping to your own local curriculum, or seeing how you could use readers within your classrooms. If you can let us know your curriculum topics, we can certainly suggest readers that might work for you as well. So yeah. So I think that might be it. Thank you so much to all of you for your time and wonderful comments and interaction. As I say, if you need anything further, please do get in touch with SPS. They can either get in touch with me directly, or we'll be able to help you. And otherwise, I really hope at least some of this you have managed to pick up some useful tips for your classroom. Good luck with your teaching, and thank you very much.